Hey guys, welcome back to my Beauty in Motion banner review. This is part 2 where I'll be covering the 2 4 stars in this banner, Yachiyo and Norwin. If you guys haven't seen my Zarden review yet, then you can find the link to it in the description below. Okay, Yachiyo is a 4-star light blade, making her the 3rd blade in the light elemental category. She plays very differently from Howling Edward and Zarden. Howling Edward is your typical 3-star unit that has 2 damage skills, nothing too out of the ordinary. Zarden only has 1 damage skill and his whole kit is revolved around stacking energy and bursting with his skill 1. Yachiyo, on the other hand, can be played like a standard character with 2 damage skills, but to make the most out of her, she wants to paralyze foes and take advantage of that status affliction. Let's take a look at her skills. Skill 1 is Blossom Flash. It has a low SP cost of 2,567 and the animation for it is pretty quick, making it a very reliable skill for iframing. It's also a long range attack that pierces, therefore is an excellent skill versus single target foes and for clearing multiple foes that are stacked together. Damage wise, I would say is about average. It deals 2 hits of 432% light damage. Considering its low SP cost, 864% potential total damage is not too shabby at all. Additionally, Blossom Flash inflicts paralysis for 13 seconds, which is very important for her kit, but I'll dive more into that later when we get to her abilities. Her skill 2, Peerless Heart, activates Dauntless Spirit, which increases the damage dealt on Yachiyo's next 4th strike. The damage modifier is 782%. The damage to SP cost ratio is not that great, but the skill itself is not too bad for what it does. You can basically think of this skill as a regular damage skill that has a 782% damage modifier. For 4000 SP, that's fine, especially when you consider the fact that this skill boosts damage on her next 4th strike. This means that her next 4th strike will deal extremely high damage to enemy overdrive bars. The downside to this skill is that Yachiyo's DPS actually takes a hit because of the way you have to use this skill. She has to activate her S2, which takes a few seconds, then afterwards activate a 4th strike in order to complete the damage process. It takes a lot of time when you compare it to a standard damage skill. But I mean, there's pros and cons to it, and I've mentioned them already. The pro is that it adds damage to a 4th strike, which is great for chunking overdrive bars, and the con I just mentioned a few seconds ago, it takes a little bit of time to get the full damage value out of the skill. But overall, I really do like it because it's unique and it separates her from the other characters. Her abilities are Paralysis equals User Strength, Curse Res, and Paralyzed Punisher. Everything revolves around paralyzed enemies. If she paralyzes a foe, then she gains 15% strength. Furthermore, her damage dealt is increased by 20% versus paralyzed foes. With all that being said, Yachiyo is only a high damage dealer if she fights foes that are susceptible to paralysis. Otherwise, her damage output would take a huge hit and she just becomes an average DPSer. Curse Res is a nice resistance to have since that's the quote-quote recommended resistance for future content. So as a whole, Yachiyo is a very strong blade that covers a lot of ground. When all conditions are met, she deals amazing damage, but her main drawback of course is that her potential is determined by the foe's susceptibility to paralysis. I think her and Zarden are on the same playing field in terms of strength. They just had different advantages over one another, but I will say that Yachiyo's kit looks a lot more fun to use, so if I were to pick a light blade to main, Yachiyo would definitely be my first choice. Up next is Norwin, who is a 4-star dark bow that specializes in blinding enemies, just like Nefaria. A lot of you guys are probably wondering who's better, and I'll give you guys my answer to that at the very end. For now, let's take a look at his 2 damage skills. His S1 has a low SP cost of 2,503, and it deals 1 hit of 771% shadow damage and inflicts blindness for 8 seconds. Then for his S2, it deals 3 hits of 245% shadow damage in a line, and blinded foes takes 3 hits of 352% damage instead. So his kit works similar to Yachiyo's kit in the sense that they both have a skill set that is based on status afflictions. Yachiyo's kit is based on paralysis, while Norwin's kit is based on blindness. Even with the increased damage modifiers on blind enemies, Norwin's overall DPS isn't amazingly high, but it's not too bad for a bow unit. 771% damage for 2,503 SP is about average. The base modifier on his S2 is terrible, but it gets a lot better if the foe is blinded as it increases the overall damage on his S2 by roughly 300%. Now his damage skills isn't the highlight here. I think the highlight is his first ability, Blindness equal Team Strength. This is a very strong ability, but it's very situational since it can only be activated versus enemies that are susceptible to blind. If Norwin can successfully blind enemies, then this ability buffs the entire team's strength by 10% for 10 seconds. It's not the biggest strength buff out there, but 10% is still decent, and this ability is just so easy to activate. It's essentially attached to a skill 1, and it's not like his skill 1 is hard to land. I mean, think of it this way. His skill 1 is basically a 2500 SP skill that buffs the entire team for 10% strength, and to top it all off, it also deals decent damage as well. It may not be as strong as Elisan or Melody's skill 1 buff, but it's for sure just as spammable. Also, Norwin is highly capable of keeping his strength buff active at all times due to the low SP cost on skill 1, plus he has skill haste as a co-ability. As for blindness res, it's kinda whatever right now, he'll be good for light Imperial Onslaught I guess. And Blinded Punisher is a pretty straightforward ability, so let's just skip that. Norwin is hands down better than Nefaria. Nefaria is also a dark bow that relies on blinding enemies just like Norwin, but the way that she blinds enemies is from her 4 strikes after using her skill 2. It's a way more tedious process compared to Norwin. All Norwin has to do is pop his skill 1 in order to blind his foes, while Nefaria has to fill her costly skill 2 gauge and use 4 strikes. The only pro that Nefaria has on Norwin is the fact that she has paralysis res instead of blind res, because everyone assumes that paralysis res will be recommended for High Jupiter, but that's honestly not that big of a deal as there are ways around that. In my personal opinion, I think that if you are a player that enjoys using the bow, then Norwin is definitely a top bow candidate to promote. And that's going to wrap things up for this review. I hope that you guys enjoyed the 2 parts, and let me know what you guys think about Norwin and Yachiyo, Yachiyo versus Arden, and Norwin versus Nefaria. Let me know your thoughts on these 2 matchups. And as always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video.